And I think that a lot of people in this moment, in light of what we found out today, that Rob Thomson will be back next season. And I think there are a lot of people that feel like this team needs some drastic changes. Obviously, they've made a decision at the higher management levels not to change the manager. And we'll talk about whether or not that's a smart move or it's deserved or not in a moment. But I do think that some of the frustration comes into it, knowing that the margin for error is razor thin, and you have to connect on almost every major decision throughout a series. And it does feel like, and I do think that I don't want to say it's fair to say, but I don't think it's factually incorrect to say that if in most of these playoff exits, there's been one decision that seemingly kills Rob every time. It's like there's always one that he wants to have back. And for me, it probably is the Robertson one. We talked after the first game about why it played out the way it did. You didn't really kill him. I said in real time I hated it, but also acknowledged that he seemed to be a guy short out there. There's a lot that goes into it. The bottom line, though, and the biggest takeaway for me is that these guys don't give the manager any margin for error. Like, they don't allow for a mistake. They require strategic perfection because of the mere fact that they don't hit in the playoffs. Like, this team does not hit in the playoffs now, dating back to Game 6 of the 2023 playoffs. I don't know what the numbers are. What are they, like 2-12 in their last 14 playoff games or something like that now? I don't know the exact count. But I just look at this and I go, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, like this lineup is supposed to have a ton of punch. And I know you look around all these other postseason games and nobody's really scoring all that much. We watched the Tigers and Mariners play for an eternity on Friday night. Nobody hit. It was very similar to that game that we watched on Thursday night between the Phillies and Dodgers. Game 1 of the ALCS, the big bad Blue Jays who beat the piss out of the Yankees pitching. They didn't really hit against the Mariners last night. What was it, 3-1 final score, low scoring game. So, yes, you can win only scoring 2-3 runs in a postseason game. It's not that everybody's just going off in the playoffs from an offensive perspective, but there's got to be more than this. Like, I acknowledge that Kevin Long has a great track record and he's obviously well thought of around the league and by players. I know they also were 8th in runs per game this year, and that really was an uptick towards the second half and into the second half, and they were directionally better. Like, I understand all of these things. But how many times in a row can you just have these bats be absolutely god-awful year after year after year and say, like, well, all right, like we're gonna allow the guy who is, from a coaching element, most responsible for that to continue to be here? I feel like it's like low-hanging fruit to be like the hitting coach. Guys got to go out and execute. But, I mean, they just look utterly clueless. And that's with the acknowledgement that the Dodgers pitching is phenomenal. Like, the Dodgers pitching is as good as it gets. They didn't have any layups in that series, with exception of Clayton Kershaw, and they smoked them. But that's what the playoffs are. Like, you got to hit elite level pitching. You got to find a way.
And so my response to that, Bob, is I agree with you. Like, it's low hanging fruit to, fire the hitting coach or whatever. I think that is more, for teams that do that, I think you're looking at more of, this is not a cosmetic move to make the public happy. I look at that more as, this is a message to the players. Obviously, you can't get rid of 24 players, right, that screw up or whatever, right? It's always going to be the player's fault ultimately. But this is more of a message to them. Like, you didn't do your job, and this guy had to lose his job because of it.
Yeah.
And they're all really close to him. And so maybe that, for the guys who are going to be back next year, and let's be honest, there's a good number of guys that are going to be back next year. It's not going to be everybody, but a good number of players that are going to be back. Those players who really, really like Kevin Long, assuming he gets let go, we don't know this yet, right? I mean, there's a thought that they announced, Rob is coming back, but there is no decisions have been made yet on the rest of the coaching staff. If you assume that that's a change that you make, that's a message to the players directly, that you just lost your friend, the guy you respect, the guy you like, you just lost him his job. Now, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Now will you change your routine? Now will you do what we've asked you to do? Now can you, whatever. I mean, because keep in mind, like, I'll give you an example. Trey Turner, we had this conversation. He had that, conversation with Rob at the beginning of last season. He had that story that I wrote where we talked about, they wanted him to make a change. They wanted him to, get on base more, high on base, steal bases, score 100 runs. And that's all that they wanted you to do. I checked in with him at the end of the season. Like, so we had that conversation back in May. I checked in with him at the end of the season. He'd won the batting title, right? He fell 6 steals shy and 6 runs shy of reaching those, 40 steal, 100 run goal, but he missed a month, right? So he would have hit those numbers easily, right? And I checked in with him, like, do you feel like this was, successful? And he said no. And he said no because he felt like he could do more. He felt like he could be more of a 25 home run hitter, which he only hit, 12 home runs or 13, whatever it was. Like, he felt like there was more that he could do, even though he was doing what they were asking him to do. But he bought into it. Not everybody there did. That's the problem. And so, like, it makes you wonder if a different voice and a different message.
Well, I'll say this for Trey. I felt the same. I felt that he could do more, and I know that he had a nice game in game 3, but the rest of the series was generally invisible. And whether or not that had anything to do with his layoff, I don't know. The thing that was different about this series, though, yes, you're right. Not everybody bought into the tweaks and the way that they wanted some of the offensive plate approaches to evolve. But the big talking point after the Mets series was you're extending the strike zone. You're being overly aggressive. You're getting yourself out. Mets pitchers didn't even have to be competitive consistently in the strike zone to earn outs against the Phillies at the end of the 24 playoffs. This time around, I didn't see wild swings consistently outside of the zone. What was mystifying to me was that Dodgers pitchers, more often than not, were just filling up the zone, and the Phillies swing and miss in that series was astronomical. Like, the team is not good at hitting spin in general. That's been a talking point for a while now. And that's, that bared out in this series. But I mean, there were a number of times where the Dodgers' arms went right after the Phillies with fastballs in the zone, and they could not square it up.
Yeah.
Whether that be Bryce Harper, whether that be Trey Turner, whether that was Kyle Schwarber. Like, I mean, it was pretty much everyone. And again, I'm willing to acknowledge that you look at the top of the Dodgers order, it really struggled. Some of their dudes struggled too. And even some of their second tier guys, like the Pazes of the world, like, they were not good in that series. So I get it. Not all 9 guys are going to click, but I'll tell you what my one other observation from this team offensively, and I guess it's easy to say this, so I don't want to fall into the trap of taking the most obvious observation. But when I watch the Mariners and when I watch the Blue Jays and I watch the Brewers, I feel like that they are a connected unit. The lineup works in conjunction with one another. There is a more of a pass the baton mentality. It just feels like that there is a more collective game plan from lineups in these postseasons. Whereas the Phillies, I feel like it's very individualistic. It's very I'm Kyle Schwarber. I will try to hit a home run. I'm Bryce Harper. I'm going to try to have the moment. I'm Trey Turner. I'm going to try to have the moment. And I don't know if that's me taking if that's connecting the last 4 years in general and trying to make something of what I see. But I don't feel like the Phillies have that cohesiveness in their approach as an entire lineup. And I think that you need that when you get into these games.
Well, we've said for a while that the lineup is too one-sided, right? It's too much of the same thing. And that they had kind of pigeonholed themselves a little bit with the way that they had handed out contracts or guys playing certain positions. I mean, you got to remember when Schwarber and Castellanos were both brought in here, they were both brought in here to be split DH left field. And they were both on the roster this year, and neither one of them played left field. I mean, I guess Schwarber played 8 games out there, but that's it, right? So ultimately what they were originally brought in here for and what they became pigeonholed the Phillies because you couldn't go get the bats that you needed to balance the lineup a little bit more. So you had a mixture of contact, thump, good base running, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of the same. And so that's where it was a failure in construction, but it was also brought about by Bryce Harper's injuries, right? Yeah. I mean, that's what really brought this into the spot. So they tried to do whatever they could within the framework of what they had.
Well,
And it just didn't work, right? I mean, it just didn't work. And so that's where the change needs to be this offseason. You can have some of what you have, but you need some of what you don't have to make this a more balanced lineup.